Hello, and welcome to the NOTstalgia podcast.
A podcast where we discuss the retelling or continuation of pop culture favorites as seen through a queer and feminist lens.
My name is Eric Lefebvre.
And my name is Jessica Dracero.
And this week, we're real boys because we watched Pinocchio,
The Disney versions of Pinocchio.
Yes, so this is actually a really important point for us to clarify because this is the Disney Pinocchios, because we will probably be covering the non-Disney Pinocchios later because they're just too fucking
Quite
good
soon,
not to talk
probably.
about.
Okay.
Probably.
Pinocchio is like Peter Pan, where there is like literally a million different versions like that have come to like the big screen or whatever. So I didn't even realize Guillermo del Toro has a stop animation Pinocchio that's supposed to be darker coming out in like a couple weeks. And I was like, what the fuck? So like our podcast is always like, you know, like remakes and stuff like that, but literally like back to back of the same fucking story by like two big names. Like what the fuck?
Literally, I can't believe that the Zemeckis one just came out. Also, speaking of, we apparently love talking about his movies because we've talked about so many of his films. I also forgot that this was a Robert Zemeckis movie until the end when it was like directed by Robert Zemeckis, written by Robert. I was just like, oh, okay.
And it was like, oh, this tracks 100%.
Yeah,
everything makes sense now.
And so, so listener, keep in mind, this is the original Disney cartoon animated film, Pinocchio, and the 2022 Disney Plus Robert Zemeckis Pinocchio with Tom Hanks. We will be getting into probably, and this is a spoiler alert, but later, the Jonathan Taylor Thomas 90s Pinocchio, which is an absolute fucking nightmare, and the hopefully intentional nightmare of the Guillermo del Toro stop motion animated film Pinocchio. That'll be coming out very soon. So that episode's going to be coming too.
Oh my God, how like on brand would that be? Like if we did like the next episode is that Pinocchio with like all of that. And it's like, well, they did it again. Like, look at how relevant we are. Two Pinocchios. Who asked for this? What the fuck?
That would be so funny. I would just make a meme cover for it. Like, invert the colors.
Incredible.
So yeah, that's what we're doing this week. It's a little saucy. It's a little spicy. Jess, what is your history with Pinocchio as an idea, as a character, and as a story?
So I watched Pinocchio growing up a couple times and working for Schmizni for many, many years. Growing up and going to Disneyland all the time. Not all the time, but like going to Disneyland. Like I remember being absolutely terrified of going into Monstro's mouth for the storybook, where it's just like little fucking houses. Like you go into the whale, you go into Monstro, he fucking eats you, and then there's like this like little model of Snow White's house, you know, and it's like, what the fuck? But I mean, canonically, all of the rides in Fantasyland are terrifying. Like you literally go to hell in Snow White.
Ride.
Yeah, and Mr. Toad. Yeah, Snow White. The trees like gave me nightmares forever.
Oh, scary as fuck.
Everything, all those dark rides are really terrifying. So yeah, watched it. No, I mean, there's like so many different iconic lines. There's like When You Wish Upon a Star, which that theme then became synonymous with Disney's logo, right? Whenever like it's like Walt Disney Pictures, that's da 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 da,
like
right?
It's the titular song. It's the Disney song.
So yeah, there's a lot of that in here, but also like I don't know. It's going back and watching it was wild. So that's me and Pinocchio. That's me. How about you?
Yeah, I don't really have a lot with Pinocchio. I did see it when I was younger, I think. Like I was discussing last night, and like we will probably discuss in a later episode, my affiliation is really engulfed in the weird, vivid, sort of like nightmarish flashes of memory from the Jonathan Taylor Thomas Pinocchio that like come to me every now and again and I forget exists. So that's really my history with it. I don't really care about Pinocchio. Pinocchio's fine. It is one of the darker stories that really like, it obviously gets like a new like happy take, but even in this happy take, it's still fucking gross and like very, very scary. So I'm excited to talk about it.
I do kind of miss like some of the darker elements that were in like some of those older stories.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when these stories get redone, by taking that out and just making everything sunshine and rainbows, it diminishes a lot of the story and the work and everything. But
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll get into it. Did that happen with this Pinocchio? You, listener, are about to find out.
You're going to check it out. Let's dig in. In late 19th century Italy, a woodworker named Geppetto carves a marionette of a little boy he decides to name Pinocchio. All evening, he runs around the house playing with Pinocchio, his cat Figaro, his fish Cleo, and his 1800 cuckoo clocks. Before heading to bed, Geppetto makes a wish on a star, hoping it will come true, and Pinocchio will become a real boy. While he and his animal companions are asleep that night, the Blue Fairy makes an appearance and promptly makes Pinocchio come to life and names Jiminy Cricket, an actual cricket and uninvited guest, Pinocchio's conscience. The Blue Fairy leaves and Geppetto wakes up to find his wish has come true. After a quick celebration and a long sleep, Geppetto decides to send Pinocchio to school. On the way, Pinocchio meets a pair of foxes that convince him to skip school and join the traveling marionette show, earning themselves some coin in the process. Jiminy, who just so happened to sleep in and miss the whole exchange, tries to convince Pinocchio to go back to school and throws a tantrum when Pinocchio decides to pursue his acting career.
Pinocchio performs that same evening and is a huge hit, which prompts the show owner Stromboli to lock him up and force him to perform in the next town. Jiminy finally shows up and immediately gives up on freeing Pinocchio, but the Blue Fairy shows up and bails them out despite Pinocchio lying to her for literally no reason. On the way home, Pinocchio is scooped up by the foxes again and sent to Pleasure Island, where, quote, bad boys, end quote, are taken and allowed to break rules and generally be awful with no repercussions. Except all the boys eventually turn into jackasses for behaving like jackasses and are sold off to do manual labor. Yikes. Pinocchio manages to escape from the island, but picks up a pair of ears and tail along the way and finally makes it back home to see Geppetto, only he is gone. A letter from the Blue Fairy tells Pinocchio that Geppetto is out at sea looking for him, so Pinocchio sets out to find him in the literal belly of the beast Monstro. Once he finds Geppetto, they all escape Monstro's stomach by making him sneeze, and the Blue Fairy makes Pinocchio a real boy.
Woo! First and foremost, is this where they got Red Lobster from to make the Red Lobster restaurants? That's my big question. It is the question on everyone's lips. It's a question on everyone's minds, really.
Explain this to me, because
Where
I've
the
never been to a Red Lobster because I'm allergic to shellfish. So for all of us that have a shellfish allergy and have never partaken in the Red Lobster experience, please.
Well, so the tavern that the two foxes are in, when he eats that delicious looking cigar donut and dips it into the beer, that whole scene.
Oh my God, that's
it takes
incredible.
place. The storefront is called Red Lobster.
Holy
Just
shit,
Red Lobster.
is it?
It's called Red Lobster. That's all it's called. I think it's like the Red Lobster Tavern, maybe, but it's like big letters Red Lobster, and they're inside eating and drinking and being merry. And I'm like, Red Lobster, Red Lobster, Red Lobster, Red Lobster. So I thought that was fun. And also, as a kid, it's disgusting now, the idea of it. But when you're a child, things look appetizing regardless. So when he eats that smoked donut, I was like, I bet that's really fucking good. Like, oh my God, I want to eat that smoked donut. Ooh, I want that smoked donut. It looks so yummy, and I wanted to eat it so bad. Okay.
I mean, maybe you were just like into like the idea of dipping donuts in coffee, because that does sound fucking good right now.
Honestly, that sounds so good. I've had so much coffee today and I want more. So I do want to speak to the star of the show. I want to talk a little bit about Figaro.
Okay.
Because
yes.
Figaro
is like literally all my notes, because Figaro carries this entire movie.
The star of the film.
It's perfect. And literally, like, if there's a supercut somewhere of just Figaro of this movie, it's perfect. 10 out of 10. That's all I need.
Someone get Lord on the phone now.
Oh my God. Do it.
Yeah, literally.
Do it.
I Figaro, the cutest everything. Like, hey Figaro, can you shut the window? Like the half turn, like, are you fucking kidding me, old man?
when
Are you
he's in his
fucking
little
serious?
bed that is made for him that says Figaro and he's like tucked
It's
himself
it.
in, I'm just like, I cannot with him. Like, and then he's like dancing with Pinocchio and then like him like getting jealous and then not wanting to say goodnight to Cleo, the little fish, but like reluctantly just being like, okay, fine, bye. But like
Yeah.
also, when he's sitting down to eat his little fishy dinner, that he's got like his own little chair that is carved perfectly for him and this like beautiful looking fish with, and he's just like so ready every single scene. Also him like sneaking under Geppetto's feet, like, oh my God.
The
Wanting to go
cutest
to
kitty.
school with
Like
Pinocchio, like, oh my
bum, bum,
God.
bum, 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 like just wanting to like do the little it's just this cat. This cat's a winner. This cat is a fucking star. Fuck the Aristocats. This is the cat of
This is the cat,
this is the
the
cat
Disney
of Disney.
animation cat. This is
Um
him. There's this
Figaro's the
little
cutest.
section
Yeah.
in the Disneyland in Disneyland, there's like one little section like where if you look up and to like the right somewhere, there's like a little animatronic of Figaro, and it's one of my favorite spots in the park purely because Figaro
Ugh,
is there. But like you would never notice it if you knew it, if you didn't know it was there.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, Figaro is the best.
Um I have a nothing take that I just want to talk about because I think it's fun and possibly real, but who knows? Um, Geppetto's gay,
Okay.
I think. Well, no. Here's my thing. He's this super content, very boisterous, a little flamboyant older man who loves his pets and like they're his. He treats them like they're his children. Like
Mm-hmm.
he does not have any sort of companion. He is all alone. He is a tinkerer and an effeminate tinkerer at that. And there's this longing for him to be a father. There's this longing for him to not only be a father, but kind of like I feel like he wants by creating Pinocchio, he wants to give him possibly the childhood that he never had.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's an element of like starting over and maybe like having a better life, which there's an assumption of like his life is hard. I know at that time life was just hard, especially if you were poor, and a lot of people were poor, and I understand that. But like it leads me down the path of like he's been gay, he's been persecuted for it, and now he's just trying to live like his merry old life. Nothing more really attests to that idea apart from my speculation. But I just think it's an interesting idea. And if it's true, I love it. I love the idea of it.
I'm here for it.
Because
Yeah.
then also the rest, like we'll talk about more later. But as we get into the sort of like the narrative surrounding like learned masculine behavior and learned masculine toxicity and how that like is an entrapment, like it entraps you into this shitty like you just become a literal monster, a literal donkey, like you become an animal, you're taught these behaviors and suddenly you're like just like the rest of them, you've become this animal because of this system that forces you to do these things, and suddenly everything's gone and your life is over. Because of that notion and that like piece of the narrative, that's what makes me think that like, oh well, he's the opposite of all that. He's like careful, he's like precise, he's intentional, he's flamboyant, he's a little bombastic, he's like silly. He's silly in a way that feels so earnest and so like non-performative that like all of the other men in this film are all these just like rah grumpy rah, I'm a big mean guy, and he's just like oh he's a little soft F word, you know
He
what I
wants to
mean?
sit there and play with his like cat and his fish and his toys that he
Yeah,
makes. He makes toys and he like literally every part of his home is embellished to like one of the things I love the most about
tchotchkes
um
gay,
yeah, yeah. Like one of
sorry,
the things I
gay.
love about old Disney animation is the background work.
Yeah,
And if you, not to keep talking about Disneyland, but if you go to California Adventure and you sit in the animation building, they will project these big, beautiful backgrounds like on the walls that are like, you know, like as big as a building. And to see them like blown up that big, just like to sit in that world for a moment is like so incredible. And so I love going back, even if I don't love the Disney film, like I love going back and sitting in this world where it's like so well drawn and so well thought out and so detailed. Like, and I think that that's where this really shines because it shows the detail work that he puts in, like literally like the chair legs have like this cool little intricate thing. Nobody's ever going to see that. Why do you do it? Just because, like, because he could, because he wants to surround himself with like beautiful things that make him happy, and he wants to create things rather than destroy them. Like it's so wonderful.
Yeah, and that leads to the sort of queer charm of him. Like it's there's a tenderness that every other man in this movie lacks that he like has in just drove. Like he's filled to the brim with that sort of queer joyous embellishment that we get so little of from all the other men. And that's what just makes me think about it. Apart from the speculation of it, there isn't really anything else there, but I just thought it was cute. What the fuck is up with his cuckoo clocks? Because
Okay, it's way worse than the second one. I have a lot to say about it in the
my god, I
second
have
one.
so much to say about it in the
So,
second one.
my first rant, as soon as we finish the intro, is going to be me going on about those fucking cuckoo clocks for 10 minutes and how his
it's a
wife is a
joke.
monster.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cuckoo clocks, I was like, okay, like the design for some of them,
I mean, it's hard because it's like part of
the
me
40s when this
it's
was made.
yeah, and part of me is
80, I think
also
it's like 85 year, like this is the biggest gap that we've had. I went back and looked with
is
Danny,
it?
and so even though we've done films that like maybe hold up better or whatever, like the 1940 to 2022 is the largest gap that we have covered in film here on this podcast.
Wow. So fucking sick. So yeah, I mean, breaking ground here. That's so cool. But I know that it's the 40s, and now that we've sort of discussed this speculative queer thing, part of me wonders if like all of these carved toys and all of these clocks are a way for him to sort of purge
His trauma,
the masculinity and the toxic aspects of society. It could be his trauma. Like, what is up with the cuckoo clock of the kid getting beat?
spanked
Yeah.
by.
Cool.
Mhm.
Then there's also like the drunkard in the tavern cuckoo clock. I just there's part of me that just thinks like, is it his way of sort of coping, but also his way of sort of reconciling with the things that he may have been, or the things that he may not have liked about himself, or maybe just the things that he doesn't like with the world.
Yeah.
We don't get it enough, and I know like at first pass it's like, what the fuck is this guy like? These are weird, gross clocks, but I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, it could be a therapy for him.
I like that a lot, and I like this because I went into this, like, being like, "Okay, Geppetto, like, why does he want a kid?" Like, just kind of like, "Alright," he is the sweetest man, and I love that about him. I love that he takes his cat and his fish everywhere. I love that they are, he will do anything for Pinocchio, even though, he, like, literally just met him, like, like, overnight. He's like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna take care of you. Great." Like, I love that, and I love the tenderness and the softness that you were talking about and, like, the playfulness, and I think that that is really great, especially when, paired against literally every other man in this story, and we can't say, I mean, there's no other women, right? There's the blue fairy,
No.
and she's just there to fix all of the mistakes that men make,
Yeah.
but
Which I do love the idea of that, where she's like, honestly, you guys are a fucking mess, but like, here you go. Bye. Figure it out.
Then there's Cleo, the hot fish, who
Oh
had
my
to be
god, the
hot for
hot
some reason.
fish with fucking hot horny eyes. My
Oh
god.
my god.
She was cool though. She was great.
Yeah, she was sick,
I
but,
will
like, I like
yeah,
that.
same. And also there's like the way he, like you said, he really cares about Pinocchio in this way where like he's like, you need a chaperone, like you need a conscience. The world is gonna literally tear you apart. It's gonna see you, and it's gonna shape you into whatever it wants you to be, because you don't have the life skills. So Jiminy, go be his conscience. Take care of him. Like he needs guidance. Please do that.
I
But also
mean, he
Jiminy
doesn't know
Cricket's just
about
like,
Jiminy. I think if he knew about Jiminy, he'd be like, "What the fuck?" Because okay,
well, yeah, that's
Jiminy,
true.
I fucking hate Jiminy. I
He's a horny little
he's
fucking weirdo.
he's so horny. Like in every iteration, like he's the horniest and the worst at his job. Like I don't understand what he thought would qualify him. I mean, I do because he's a big old boomer, right? Because he thinks that he knows right from wrong and he could teach everybody when he's literally squatting in this house, like uninvited, like trying to pretend like, like I don't know. I don't love that I don't love him at all. I hate his character. And so that brings me to the next point where Jiminy Cricket is actually an allegory for Jesus Christ.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you say
Phonetically
like
too, that
Jiminy
was like,
Crickets, right, instead of Jesus Christ, instead of taking God's name in vain. So, and then when you look at his character and a lot of the, wisdom he tries to impart and a lot of like stuff like that, it's like, oh yeah, this absolutely is it. And then like you see the Blue Fairies writing where it looks like this biblical writing, but like he has these lines where he's like, oh, well, people don't listen to the small voice in their head. That's the trouble with the world today. And then he's like dubbed like the Lord High Keeper of right and wrong, keeper of temptation, guide along the straight and narrow path, right? Like at every moment they want to like this whole story isn't really about finding a conscience. And it's like I hate that Jiminy just doesn't work in any sense as a character. But he's like, oh, I am right and wrong. I am this, but he's so bad at it. He's late at the job. He's mad when he's like, oh, I'm not your best friend. He like tries to help Pinocchio and he's like, oh well, this cage is locked. There's literally nothing I could do. Bye. He's like so quick to anger and so quick to just like blame everybody else but himself. And that's not what a conscience does. Like he's like pretending like and the story like lifts him up and so does like in like the zeitgeist it's like, oh, Jiminy Cricket, you need a conscience. But when you look at the character, he never actually says, like he's always late, he's never around, he's always gone, right? And he comes up and he's like, oh, maybe don't do that, Pinocchio. But he doesn't have like any good arguments for it. He doesn't even like really try. He's just like, oh, well, you're not gonna like listen to what I have to say, like right off the bat. Like, fine, fuck you, right? And like his first like the first thing he wants to do in one of the scenes is to solve a situation by fighting a kid, and then he talks to the when he's talking to the Blue Fairy because Pinocchio is lying out his nose. He's like, oh well, give him a chance for me, right? But that's not about Pinocchio. It's never about Pinocchio. It's about him and trying to elevate who he is and where he is and uphold his idea of who he is, where he is the moral right and wrong when he literally does nothing and says nothing and never helps anybody. So if Pinocchio fails, then he fails, and that changes his status, and that also changes, that challenges his perception of himself. So like Jiminy is like literally the worst fucking character and is not a conscience at all and is never there for Pinocchio.
also to this weird sort of Jesus Christ allegory conversation, apart from just the namesake. I mean, the latter half of the film is just Jonah and the whale. Like they get eaten up by the big whale. Like it's just there's so many elements of this that reek of Christian propaganda. I mean, also the gluttonous anarchists who get turned into beasts and sold off into slavery because they were disgusting and gluttonous and took the Lord's name in vain and were horny and fornicating. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they deserve what they got, which also bleeds into the why is this a film about child trafficking? It's just
Right? Like
so scary and gross, and it's like the moral being like don't follow them because of whatever. It's like yeah for sure, but like what about the people who captured them? Like it's not it's entrapment, it's
mhm.
kidnapping, it's trafficking, it's like why is this? And I know that it's because Pinocchio is a boy and so they're trying to pit it like other boys doing bad and getting in trouble for being bad. Cool. But even then it's like those kids are kids. They're fucking children, and they're being trafficked by strange men, taking them to an island called Pleasure fucking Island, which is so gross and scary and so terrifying. And like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And it's like they go to Kid Vegas, basically, right? Because they're playing pool, they're drinking, they're they're smoking, they're like there's no rules, they're breaking everything, they're fighting. And because like there's also a problem with this, because this is saying not necessarily that, these kids were raised wrong or everything, but this is inherently who kids are without Christ, right?
Without a
And
moral conscience.
and you will literally go to hell being taken by these like shadow demons, right? You'll go to hell and you'll be put to work for eternity for and like that's awful. I really hate stories that like, and a lot of like older stories do this where they try to like scare you into obedience.
Yes.
And it's awful.
It's a Christian moralist scare tactic,
Yes.
is what this story is at the end of the day, really. And Pinocchio becomes a real boy because he ended up, rebuking the lifestyle. Like, it's just,
but here's another thing. He got a chance. He got two chances, right? Like he
escapes Stromboli.
Mm-hmm.
He escapes Pleasure Island.
Mm-hmm. And that was given to him by the Blue Fairy, right? Which also, like, when she spouts off everything that she says, almost everything she says, I feel like could be a Bible scripture.
Oh, I know.
She says stuff. Also, her animation is like the most, and they do this a lot in old animation for like Pretty Women or whatever, where it's
a rotoscope.
The woman is the most realistic. Like she's in a cartoon world, but she's drawn more realistic than anybody else, right? But she says, prove yourself brave, truthful, and unselfish, and you can earn it's basically you can earn real personhood. Choose over right and wrong, let conscience be your guide. But this kid has no concept of that, doesn't understand what a conscience is, doesn't understand right from wrong. Like he doesn't have any of that, right? So for her to say that is fucked up. And then there's a lie keeps growing and growing till it's plain as the nose on your face, right? Like, okay, whatever. Then there's like a boy who's no good, might as well be made of wood. And then there's a couple of moments where I'm just like, this is bad.
Yeah. Like it's scary and weird and like reeks of Christian propaganda. Speaking of Christian propaganda, let's talk about Stromboli. Stromboli, his caricature anti-Semitic structured ass character, what is with, like, I mean, we know what's with it. It's anti-Semitism and it's racism in action, but it is just like the weird exaggerated facial features that it's supposed to demean other races and cultures, in a way that none of the white characters get these hyper exaggerated features. It's like, oh, he's relatively not white, cool, big lips, big nose, big eyebrows, like let's make, and it's the grossest, most unambiguously racist shit. And not only that, but he's like a greedy fucking monster who like can't stop thinking about money, and like he is like it reeks of J.K. Rowling, you know what I mean? Like it's just the nastiness of this caricature.
And I feel like they doubled down on that in the next one and make it even worse if possible. I mean, it is possible, but yeah.
Not to be weird, but literally Robert Zemeckis' last film did the same thing with the anti-Semitism in the original text
with the witches.
So, what's up, Bobby Z? What are you doing? Are you okay? Do we need to talk?
Are you? Do you need to go to? You need to go to therapy.
Should we talk about stuff, or like where's the nuance? Because anyways. Yeah, Stromboli is a fucking mess. Is a shit character. I will say also, I Got No Strings on Me is a fucking pop. I mean, apart from all of Stromboli's bullshit and apart from Pinocchio's strife in the moment, I Ain't Got Strings on Me, slay, slap, crackle pop, put it on a vinyl, ship it off to Urban Outfitters because they're gonna sell.
Also,
It's so good.
so when I was watching this, and listening to the iconic song that I've heard so many times from Fireworks and Phantasmic and all of this, right? I watching this, I was like, yeah, okay, you've got no strings. But like looking at the subtext and all of that, I mean, like he has the most strings out of everybody because he's being pulled in so many different directions by so many different people. Like, he's tethered by like these strings of morality and going in both ways and literally kind of like just going wherever somebody pulls him, basically. Like he's so impressionable that he just meets somebody and inherently trusts them, which this is like, they're trying to say that like boys inherit nature or whatever, or like poor people are bad with like, the fox characters, or the boy kids that like go to Pleasure Island. But like this is inherently how we are when we don't have a reason to distrust people until like you learn the ways of the world. I think we were talking about this yesterday, literally, about how capitalism makes a society to where you can't ask for help, and like, just people are going to take advantage of you, and then you shield yourself, and it's like anti-community and everything. But for Pinocchio, yeah, like he's tethered by the strings of morality, and everybody is like that comes along just kind of pulls him to where their direction. So he's like, oh yeah, acting, that sounds cool, like sure. And he doesn't even realize, like, when Jiminy comes up and like for 2 seconds is like, oh my god, just go to school, and he's like, I'm gonna be an actor, this is great. And Jiminy's like, well, fuck you too, and runs off, right? Like Pinocchio just like doesn't see what's wrong about that because nobody's taking the time to explain anything to him. And I feel like, if anything, like this, because why does he go to the theater? Why does he go to acting? Because these two foxes who are poor and who need money see that this Stromboli is in town and want to give him Pinocchio for money. They sell Pinocchio into slavery. And then Pinocchio is again tried to make a slave into like, a donkey at Pleasure Island, right? So everything bad that happens to him is because of capitalism.
It's all because of capitalism. He is thrown into the rapids of capital. And it's so gross because, like, if money wasn't, like, the only reason these bad people are doing these bad things is to turn a profit, because in the system, that's the only way they can make money, and money's the only way you can live. And there's no help, and there's no break. There's no reprieve from this system. Yeah, like we were talking about this yesterday, but it was very much, and for the listener, you'll have no idea what yesterday was for us. You'll have no sense of time or context for like where we were, what we were talking about, and you know what? That's okay, because this is for us. So, but yeah, we were talking about it yesterday about just the fucking capitalism is and everything that is anti-humane, like inhumane. It is the opposite of like our natural state of oneness and existence in the world, the way we're supposed to be humans and live here on earth. Capitalism is the exact opposite of it. It is divisive, it is insidious, it is intentionally dismissive, belittling, and it is the worst. It's the fucking worst. Capitalism, it ruins everything, and it's so disgustingly bad. And Pinocchio is no different.
It's kind of interesting, I think, that we get Pinocchio as a character that was born yesterday, right? Like, I'm used to watching science fiction, so I'm used to saying the like sexy born yesterday or born sexy, like, that sort of thing.
I'm a sexy baby.
Yeah, like look at me, Fifth Element. Oh my god.
Oh my god. Which, I mean, I will say,
which
it
is
was on
incredible.
Masterpiece. That movie is so good, and
100%.
fucking Mila Jovovich forever. But
We
yes,
stan.
she
You know
perpetuates
this,
the
listeners.
sexy baby trope for sure. It's not lost on me. She does.
Yeah. It's fine because she's hot. But anyways, him being like this character that's born yesterday, trying to find immorality, being taken like advantage of everybody. Like, it's interesting because Pinocchio, he hasn't even like had a thought for like more than like a day, right? So like when we first meet him, he's like literally like he has to be told not to touch fire, and he keeps asking Geppetto why, and which is so cute, like until they fall asleep, right? And then he's like, everything he sees, he's like questioning, he's like, oh, why this, right? And he can't even understand the concept of lying, which I do think that the lying sequence was weird, and I don't think that that was I didn't like that, just because it didn't feel like there was a setup for it, and it didn't feel like there was like really a need for that. Like, where did he learn this concept? And he doesn't even know what being in trouble is really. Like, why is he going to be afraid of afraid of this? So I have issues with that in both iterations. But he doesn't start to learn to think about the choices that he makes or the bad things that are happening until the physical manifestation of those consequences start showing up. Like in one, like when he gets locked up by Stromboli, and then he's like, oh, there are consequences to running off and not going to school, which I think that's stupid. But so there's a consequence. He starts crying because, oh, I did mess up, I should have gone to school, right? When he's on Pleasure Island, he doesn't really think about what's going on until he sees his friend start to turn into a donkey, and then starts to get like turned into a donkey himself, and then he's like, oh, okay, this is bad, right? So we're seeing him kind of learn that. And we see him like seem fearless, but the only reason he's fearless is because he has no context of fear, right? He has no context for anything. So he goes to find Monstro and is asking all the sea creatures for help, and they're like, what? And like, even after being thrown into like a cage, and even after almost being enslaved again, like he's still like, fear, what's that? I mean, he is like a little white boy. But
Yeah.
still, he doesn't really have context for any of this, because like I think he didn't have enough time with Geppetto before Geppetto was like, oh, you should go to school, right? Like, let's
What?
teach you,
8 hours after being born, like, hey, King, go to
and like
school.
6 of those were sleeping.
Yeah, it's
you
very
know.
goofy.
But yeah, so I thought that that was interesting, and also very true. Like, no, like any young person, I mean, even a lot of older people, a lot of people don't think about the choices that we're making until we start to see some sort of consequence, right? Hello, climate change.
Yeah,
And now like, oh shit, we need to take care of this. Like, yeah, like trust fucking science. But yeah, I thought that that was a fun idea.
it's a kind of a mishmash film. I, to a certain degree, get why it is a classic ish.
I feel like it's a classic because of you know, the majority of Christian Disney consumers, right? Where they're like, yes, this will teach my kid right from wrong. Or it's like nostalgia, like I watched this, now you watch this, like I don't think because this film was watched by so many people when they were so young, I don't really think that they think about what's actually happening, because it's like, oh yeah, I know this story, and my kids are gonna watch it. But it's kind of a nothing. It's kind of a nothing, except for the No Strings
It's
on Me
it's just
and
fear. It's
Figaro.
like
It's Figaro.
it's
That's the whole
fear.
movie.
It's fear propaganda for children. Like, that's all
Yeah.
it is. It's like a reiterative, be good and don't be bad, or else you're gonna fucking die. Oh, cool. Thanks, Mom and Dad. So excited to watch this film. Great. It's just another whatever Disney film that I don't know. Fuck Disney. Should we move on?
Dang. Yeah, let's do it. Okay.
Yay!
In the late 19th century Italy, a woodworker named Geppetto carves a marionette of a little boy he decides to name Pinocchio. All evening, he runs around the house playing with Pinocchio, his cat Figaro, his fish Cleo, and his 1800 cuckoo clocks. Before going to bed, Geppetto makes a wish on a star, hoping it will come true and Pinocchio will become a real boy. While he and his animal companions are asleep that night, the blue fairy makes an appearance and promptly makes Pinocchio come to life and names Jiminy Cricket, an actual cricket and uninvited guest, Pinocchio's conscience. The blue fairy leaves, and Geppetto wakes to find his wish has come true. After a few days of celebrating indoors, Geppetto decides to send Pinocchio to school. On the way, Pinocchio meets a pair of foxes that convince him to skip school and join the traveling marionette show, earning themselves some coin in the process. Jiminy, who just so happened to sleep in and miss the whole exchange, tries to convince Pinocchio to go back to school and throws a tantrum when Pinocchio decides to pursue his acting career instead.
Pinocchio performs that same evening and is a huge hit and makes friends with young disabled puppeteer Fabiana, which prompts the show owner Stromboli to lock him up and force him to perform in the next town. Jiminy finally shows up and works with Fabiana to help Pinocchio escape. On the way home, Pinocchio is scooped up by a coach full of children on their way to Pleasure Island, where bad children are taken and allowed to break the rules and be generally awful with no repercussions. Except all the kids eventually turn into jackasses for behaving like jackasses and are sold off to do manual labor. Yikes. Pinocchio manages to escape the island but picks up a pair of ears and a tail along the way and finally makes it back home, only to find Geppetto is gone. A garbage-eating seagull tells them Geppetto is out at sea looking for him, so Pinocchio sets out to find him in the literal belly of the beast, Monstro. Once he finds Geppetto, they all escape Monstro's stomach by making him sneeze. Geppetto dies in the process, but is brought back to life by puppeteers. Insert questionably ambiguous ending. Is Pinocchio turned into a real boy, or does he stay a puppet? Who knows, says the narrator. Now, best line in any Disney film might be in this movie.
Okay, hit me.
When Jiminy Cricket is trying to convince Pinocchio that he wants to be real and that he should be real, Pinocchio responds with, "Why would you want to be real when you could be famous?" Slay. Cut and print.
Oh my
Pinocchio
God.
is so right.
He's
Why
so
would I want to
right.
be real when I could be famous?
It's so true. I mean, like, really, the writing for this movie is just like on point.
Some of it's really good. Like,
they
oh
have
my God.
a Chris Pine joke,
It's
which, you know, of course.
I have some character, like I have some, I mean, Sophie, like, okay, since we started the last one with Figaro, let's talk about Sophia. Sophia the Seagull. Really funny intro. Like, what a weird new character to like throw in here. Is so inconsequential, means nothing, but is like so fun, is canonically gay. Quack, quack, quack. Slay, 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 says the seagull. She's great. I loved her. She was nothing. She meant nothing. She's a nothing character, but she was so fun.
Yeah, I didn't have any notes for her. She was just kind of like, she was there and she ate garbage. And I was like, cool, I'm into it.
Yeah.
And like, whenever like Jiminy tried to like volunteer her to like, you know, take both of them out to find Geppetto, she's like, that's not at all what I said. You're on your own.
You want to know what this movie is for me? And I know, like, I feel like base level off the bat, this movie's bad.
Yes.
I think this movie's bad and dumb.
The writing is also bad. I was
not
exaggerating. I was like doing a bit.
It's not a good movie. So if you're listening to this, it's like adequate fine at best and nothing bad at worst. This movie really shows the wackiness of Robert Zemeckis in all of the bad aspects of the way that he tells stories. This movie, it really feels like he watched the SpongeBob SquarePants movie and was like, got it. I know what I'm going to do. Fully and completely with Pinocchio goes Sonic at the end. Sonic fucking boat.
Oh my God. I was like, where did he get super speed?
Where is this from? He's kicking his legs so fast he turns into a fucking speedboat. Like, what is this? What is this film? And not only that, but like, I trust me, I love the inclusion of like characters of color. I'm all about that, especially for a movie that historically is so white. But Fabiana, why did we need to give Pinocchio a fucking love interest? He's a literal baby, and suddenly he sees this other puppet / puppet master, and it's like, oh, am I fucking horny? And you're like, what are we doing here, Robert Zemeckis?
Okay,
what are we doing with this?
I have a bunch of issues with all of that. First of all, because
so
yes,
weird.
Pinocchio is a fucking
weird.
child. Second of all, he's not in love with Fabiana. He's like in love with the puppet that she's playing. So she is like playing him, pretending like it,
but it cuts between the puppet and her, and then there's a couple times he
but
like looks up at her, and I'm
Pinocchio
like,
thinks that he's talking to the puppet. He thinks the puppet is alive too, because he has no context for this. He doesn't realize that the puppet is not real. She has a name. Her name is, I forget what it is, but she has her own name. When he's talking and looking at her. He's not looking at Fabiana, which is even worse because she's a disabled woman of color and she still is not seen. She's not allowed to be seen or trusted
no.
by the main character, right? And to make things even worse, she she's disabled and she is able to be apparently this amazing puppeteer because she's disabled. Okay, fine. But all of the other people that Stromboli employs are all disabled and they are all paid starvation wages and they are treated like garbage and they're basically slaves and they can't fucking leave. So Stromboli, picks up all the disabled people and is like, you're nothing. I don't need to
It's
pay you.
okay.
And she's like, I mean, like,
It's
so cool.
literally
And every time that she was on screen, they had to make sure that we see her
her ankle.
that she's disabled. It's like, remember, she's disabled. And it's like, this is not how you write disabled characters. This
Okay,
is not representation. This is incredibly bad. Zemeckis, you are fucking bad at this.
It's so goofy because it's literally the epitome of like, we need more characters of color in film, which is like, yeah, we do. But then suddenly it's like, okay, but what if they were slaves? And you're like, wait. And what if they were all disabled and poor and near death? Wait, stop. No. And what if we just kept all the main characters who are able-bodied, perfect, and gorgeous, white? Stop. Like, you're
And
doing
what
the
if they weren't
exact
allowed
wrong
to
thing.
have conversations as themselves? They had to have a proxy in order to have these
It's
conversations and be seen.
it is the most typical white mistake for these white filmmakers to be doing shit like this, where it's like, see, we're like on with the times, we get diversity, we get progress, and it's like, you don't.
But
Like, look at this film, you
here we go.
clearly don't get it. You
Okay,
don't get what you're doing.
okay, what's hot right now? All right, so what do we need to make sure that we include? Okay, we need a disabled person, we need a woman, and we need a person of color. You know what? I got it. We have the perfect character. It's
Jess,
all of those all those like token characters rolled into one. And like when she like is talking to Pinocchio through the fucking puppet, right? It's like supposed to be this moment of like, oh, how sweet, she's helping him. But no, that like she's helping him by like erasing herself, by diminishing
it's
herself and making herself small and perpetuating this awful like where she's not even allowed to be seen on stage, right? Like
she's flying in the rafters above. It's so bad and weird. I will say though, juxtaposedly, on the other
Ooh.
end, we have star of the stage and screen, Cynthia Erivo, as the Blue Fairy, which, I mean, our new Elphaba
Oh
queen.
yeah. Yeah, that's right, huh?
She's literally so fucking like, I can't. She's incredible, and she was incredible in this.
I love that
She's
she said what we were thinking. She's
yeah,
like, "Okay, we get that he's made from pine. Okay, fine." And then like, Pinocchio, like
she's the
Geppetto
best
is
part of the
like,
film.
"Oh my God, my dead son and dead wife, right? Like I feel so bad." And she's like, "Yo, if this guy wanted to have a kid, why didn't he just go have a kid?" Right?
Yeah,
Like she's
Sh-
asking all these questions and like calls Jiminy out on his like bullshit.
yeah.
Um,
She's the best
but
part of the
okay,
movie.
she
She's the
does
best
have
part
a
of the
line where
movie.
she's like, "Fate is kind," and it was like, okay, but that took away Geppetto's wife and kid. Like, don't fucking say that. Don't bring fate
Yeah.
into this shit. That's my only line that I had a problem with for her, but every other time was a fucking
Uh,
slay.
but she's so good, and hearing her sing the song is so amazing, and I'm just so impressed by her. And her character was perfect. I'm so happy they cast her as a Blue Fairy. Fucking full slay. It is the only good choice this movie made.
Can we talk about how this movie makes Honest John and what's his name? His like boyfriend.
Oh, the foxes.
Yeah, so they make them queer canonically. And
Yeah,
there's this moment, and it's so fucking subtle, it didn't need to be there, where on the mallet that they take out to like hit Pinocchio, or there's like the fight, there's a heart on the hammer with the initials G, which is for the one fox, and HJ for Honest John on it.
Yeah.
So being queer is bad. Queer people are con
Also,
men and
the
liars,
I
and
don't mean to like get back into this, but it's like the worst choice for these characters to be gay, because you know what? The running stereotype for gay men in the fucking 40s, 50s, and 60s were that they were pedophiles. So why are you giving this fucking idea to the two characters who are stealing this kid and throwing him to fucking child trafficking? You idiot!
Mhm.
Like, that is the worst. Those are the worst characters to
It's
make
fucking
gay. It's so
irresponsible.
irresponsible and so gross. And it's so subtle, and it's supposed to be like, yeah, characters, but it's like, you don't understand the base tropes of what you're doing. And maybe you do. Because again, we saw the witches. Why did we add the let's kill Jewish people bullshit of fucking what's his name in there?
Mhm.
Like, why did you bring that of all the shit from that anti-Semitic assholes books you bring back into the witches? It is the let's go hunt them all
Yeah.
tactic shit. Okay, big mistake. You're the fact that you don't get this, and maybe you do, which is scary, gross. And then on top of that, you're adding all of these little elements. It's like, you are a filmmaker, and I don't mean to diminish this man's credentials. You're a good filmmaker. You are historically a fantastic filmmaker.
Death
You've made
becomes
some of the
her.
best films in cinematic history. You're responsible for a lot of really wonderful art. You're heralded as such too. It's not like you're an underdog. You are one of the biggest, best, most accredited storytellers in the world. You know the tropes. You know the subtlety of subtext. You know what this stuff does. So, King, why are we doing it? Because you're
Right?
doing it on purpose.
Because it's not
And
like he's not
why?
capable.
He's
And,
so capable.
like, and it's just so frustrating, like, because, like, I feel like a lot of, like, older directors, like, of his caliber have gone this way where they made really great stuff when they were younger. And then the newer stuff, it's like, why are you choosing to remake this? And then, half the time it's like, oh, well, it's more to the original story. Well, the original story, like, has, like, because this is, like, all, literature from, even before they were alive, right? It's like, why are we going back to that when it has these awful, horrible tropes, these things that are like actively bad and actively causing harm? Why are you choosing to ignore that just because you want to make a movie of the witches again? you
Yeah,
know?
it doesn't make any sense. And it's really disheartening because, like, it's disheartening because for me, it's like, for what? Like, for what purpose is this film? Like, for no, like, how many times has this story been told? It does not to be need to be told again. And if you're gonna
Mm-mm.
tell it again, you have like the right, quote unquote, right version of this has already been told, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's done. You're not breaking the mold on anything. Go off and be a fucking weirdo with it. But you choose to be this like casually subversive, messy.
And we
I mean,
have
I
to
will
double
say,
down, like, we have to, like, erase the idea that, you brought forward with the last one where it's like, "Oh, Geppetto is gay." Like, this is, like, instead, we have to explicitly show that, "Oh, no, he was straight, and, he had a kid, and this is why he wants to build the puppet." And to me, that, like, takes everything about Geppetto and makes it really creepy because, like, now it's like, "Oh, my dead son," which, like, I get, like, trauma and all that stuff, but, like, the way like, this man doesn't feel inherently kind in the same way that Geppetto felt inherently kind, and he feels
yeah,
so in denial where he's not selling his cuckoo clocks, he's not selling his wares to people. He's just kind of, like, existing in this trauma space, right? And his wife loved the 100 cuckoo clocks on his thing, which okay, here's my cuckoo clock rant.
oh,
Okay. So he won't sell the cuckoo clocks because his wife left them. Okay. But his wife was an actual monster, is the thing, because who the fuck could love 100 cuckoo clocks that are going off at the same time every fucking hour? How did they sleep? Is one of my questions. Two, like how
what are we in
like
the fucking Disney store?
their neighbors all hated them. And like even like they aren't even worth anything. When he sold all of his clocks, he could only afford the smallest, shittiest boat. Like, I can't with
Well,
this. I cannot.
I also, not that like it needs to be whatever. But the Disney jerk off session of Disney clocks,
Oh my God.
like Donald Duck and Snow White, and I don't know why I didn't think Zemeckis made this movie, but the Who Framed Roger Rabbit Cuckoo Clock
That's
cameo.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
why was I like surprised that Zemeckis directed this when that was in this film? Like, so silly. I hated it. It was so egregious and like up its own ass that like I I just that happened. And already, if I wasn't so turned off by Jiminy fucking Cricket trying to fuck the music box, this I was just like, I'm so done with this. Obviously, Cynthia brought me back in because she's a slay, but then I just
You know something else that took me up
so
and
stupid,
took me
so
out?
bad. What?
The weird lines in the beginning that doesn't happen anywhere else, where they're going from just normal speech to couplets, to non-couplets, to couplets. Like, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, it
Yeah.
was incredibly jarring. It was not done well. It was not a good transition.
What is this half musical ass shit? Like,
What is
what are we
this?
doing? Are we a
Yeah.
musical? Are we committing to the bit? Like, if we're gonna
Also,
commit, commit.
Geppetto's house has stairs now. Why isn't his bedroom upstairs? What the fuck is upstairs? Like, I need to know. Why did we need to interrupt the Black family's breakfast like in the morning with that whole like chase him scene or whatever? Why is the driver like Spanish like for the Pleasure Island thing? And why is the other kid from New York? Why does everybody have an accent and Pinocchio doesn't have an accent at all, despite the fact that he's in Italy? Oh
Because
wait,
some
I'm sorry. We also fixed sexism because girls are also equal opportunity bad, so they can also go to
slay.
Pleasure Island. Cool. Why did we have to show him getting laughed out of school? What did that have anything to do with? The smart home oil lamps were pretty cool. I did dig that.
Oh, I
But
love that.
then why does Monstro have to have wings and tentacles now? Like, why did we have to like
Well,
w-
so I think a lot of those elements were literally just because he was trying to do like, but the original text, but the original text. Because as we saw at the end, it's like the Italian book implying that most of this was the original text, which, whatever, who cares? But just to your point of accent work, they should have fucking committed to the bit. It's a me, a Pinocchio. Like,
something?
do it. You
If you're
cowards.
you fucking
You
coward.
fucking cowards.
Like,
Like,
how dare
it's a
you?
me, your papa. I'm an older man. My cuckoo, my cuckoo. Like, do it. You silly people. Like, you're remaking it. You want to do the original text. Babe, it's Italian. So unless you're doing it in Italian, you better be doing some really fucking bastardized version of that language and make it messy. You need to do it. Because you can't be racist against Italians. That's new information. And on top of that, they really should have. It
They
would have been
should
so
have.
fucking fun. Like, could you imagine if also, and oh my God, here's my pitch. He whittled this little doll, Pinocchio. What if there was a reveal where it showed his hands and he whittled his hands to look like this?
Oh my God.
Both of them. So for the listener, since you can't see what my hands are doing, it is the international sign for Italian, fingers
For
cupped and
pizza pie.
closed.
A
And for all
pizza
my
pie.
and for
Yeah.
all my gays out there, it is what you do when you fist. So let's
Yep.
think about it. So that's what I'm doing. Anyways, cowards for not Super Marioing the shit out of this film.
Absolutely.
Tragic we didn't get that. I mean, they really just SpongeBob SquarePants Sonic to the hell out of the ending. So like,
So why not?
you're gonna get goofy with it. Get goofy with it, King. Like, why are you being goofy in all the wrong ways? Like, be goofy better. You're good at Goofy. And that's the thing. He's so good at Goofy.
So
Like,
good.
Back to the Future, Roger Rabbit, Death Becomes Her.
Mhm.
Welcome to Marwin. What the fuck was that? He's so good at being weird and goofy. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why this? Like, why this weird choices? It's just,
Like,
it's a,
weird choices like Geppetto and Pinocchio are fucking hanging out, having the best time for a couple days, and never leave the house. So when Geppetto's like, you got to go to school, Pinocchio walks outside the door and is like, What's that? Oh, that's the sun, son. Like, I was
You know
like,
what?
are you fucking
I
kidding?
also wrote a fun note and I was like, this would have been so funny if in that moment when he's describing what the sun is, what if he casually threw in a flat earther thing where he was like, yeah, it goes around our flat earth or something like that. Like, because science is very old and it's an old story and people did think the earth was flat. I think that that would, like, to me, that's the right amount of goofy where he's like
Right.
teaching his son the facts of life and he's a flat earther. Like, that's so funny. That's so funny.
That would have been
Oh my
fun.
God.
Also, there's like weird moments where, like, most kids would stop to smell the roses, but Pinocchio
He stops to
stops to smell
smell
the
the
shit.
shit.
I was
he
like,
loved he
what
loved
is
that
this?
poop.
He fucking got in there, and I was just like, why?
He wanted that poop so bad. He was like, yummy, yummy, poop for me, please.
Yeah.
Give me more poop. My name's Pinocchio and I want poop.
Oh my
Is that whole
God.
scene. It was the whole scene. Because he
And
like
it was
bends
like way
down.
longer than it needs to. Like
He
it like
was
closes up on him smelling the shit.
he was nose in shit, salivating,
Mm-hmm.
ready to chomp, wanting the poop. Like, what a weird scene. And literally Jess, king of being goofy. Like, this is the weirdest, goofiest shit. Literally. You know what I mean? Like, it was
Yeah.
so unnecessary. For what purpose? Apart from like, oh yeah, he's literally a wooden doll who suddenly gains sentience. Of course he's gonna be mystified by poop. In the way that children who poop are mystified by poop. He can't poop. So suddenly he's like, what is this incredibly pungent thing here? Like, I have to look at it. What is this? This is fucking crazy. Are we seeing this? Are we smelling this? This shit is nuts. Like, of course the doll's gonna do that. But like, would you include that in a movie? No. Would Zemeckis? Of course he would, because again, he's fucking goofy.
Also, that like monologue at the end where like Pinocchio is water skiing to
Oh my god.
Geppetto's boat, and he's like, "Dad, I did," and he literally recites like scene for scene everything that happened in the movie up until that point. And I swear to God, it's like 15 minutes of Pinocchio yelling at his dad across the ocean. Which how can he even hear him? I don't know. And how does it take him that fucking long to cross that
It's
distance? And his
SpongeBob
dad's
fucking
like,
SquarePants.
wow, okay. You did all that. You did more than I've done in my whole life. And I'm just like, oh my
Sponge
God.
SpongeBob fucking SquarePants is what that whole scene was. It's so goofy and weird.
It
Oh
is
my
so
god.
goofy. Also, like going to Treasure Island, right? Or Pleasure Island. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Look, these are just a bunch of kids that are, rejecting their place in society, and they're like, yeah, fuck that. I'm gonna go have fun. Like, what has the world done for me? Why are we doing that to these kids, first of all? Second of all, it looked like hella fun. Like I was like, I would love to I want to go there. I want to go
Okay.
have root beer and go down that little slidey thing, and I want to go like swim in a river of candy, and I want to go break stuff, and like I want to go do that. I want this experience. Why are we saying that this is not fun? Because the other one did the same thing too, right? Where kids aren't allowed to have fun. If kids have fun, then they're not good. And like I fucking hate that. I hate
Yeah.
that we're not allowed to have fun.
I know that their version of like they tamed this down because again, in the other one it was like beer and tobacco and
Right.
like you can do whatever. And this one they were like, this cup I'm giving you is root beer. It's root beer, definitely root beer, not beer.
Absolutely
It's
root
root
beer.
beer. It's absolutely root beer. You
Oh wait, I'm
love what is
sorry. You're
this
gonna
root beer?
stick to the text for every other choice except for beer
Yeah,
and smoking. Like that's what
and
we're gonna do.
and I completely
That's
agree
what you
with you.
decided to change.
Pleasure Island, total slay. Like boat to Ferris wheel, sign me up. Ferris wheel to roller coaster, Jesus Christ. Roller coaster to Candy Mountain. I'm coming.
Incredible.
You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just so fucking cool. And then for that to turn into like a therapy boat ride where we're like engaging in like therapy smashing and like tension release, like cool. I'm happy these kids have an outlet. I did make a fun tweet I was like, the cops in 2020, and it's just a screenshot of the pile of bricks that say free bricks outside. Because remember when cops were leaving around piles of bricks in zones where they knew there would be rioting so they can arrest protesters?
Yes.
Because fucking cops fucking suck and fuck all cops.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, yeah, like sign me up. Pleasure Island looks sick as fuck.
It looked hella cool.
And now that it's equal opportunity and not sexist, we're about to smash. I don't know. It's so stupid. Jess, this movie is like bad. Like
it's so bad, and we haven't even talked about Jiminy or Pinocchio really yet. Because I do have things to say about them. Because Jiminy looks like he's wearing a luchador mask. I don't know who was in charge of the character design for Jiminy Cricket. I even like looked up crickets to like see like, okay, were they trying to be like, oh, it's anatomical, or it's like, correct. Crickets do not look like this. He looks like he's wearing a goddamn luchador mask, and it was a fucking bad choice, and it just took me out immediately. I already didn't like his character, at least in the other one. He was kind of cute, but he's absolutely not cute in this one. And again, he fails at everything right away, and he's like, I can't reach the key. Motherfucker, you're a cricket. You just hop. You're not that far. Just hop on over there. What the fuck? Like, he was bad, if not worse, in this one.
Yeah. I did not like him. And he was so off-putting.
He was really off-putting. And like Pinocchio was different and like weird because like again, like now we've recontextualized Geppetto, right? And it's like, okay, fine. And like, okay, cool. We know Pinocchio like mimics behavior of who's ever around, right? And he keeps saying he just wants to make his dad happy, but as soon as he leaves like the house, he forgets about his dad because that's fine. Like, that's what you do. You're literally new to sentience, right? Then like we have to make sure that, the girl puppet like shows her ass to him, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the whole thing we have to do. But then he starts saying things like the only real person I can believe is my father, right? Which like that leads to how many people raise their kids to think that they can only trust their parents and what they say, and then that like turns into people not being critical about like the world that they're in or not thinking for themselves. That's like the opposite of having a conscience. The whole idea of Jiminy in general is just the opposite of having a conscience. It's just somebody telling you what to do at any point in time. Then there's the lying scene, right? Where again, it was fucking weird because like, why is he lying? And he's like, oh, well, I like, how does he know his nose is going to grow? Okay. Like how does he know that if he keeps lying that like, to me, that seemed too smart for Pinocchio. Like he's not that intelligent. We've never seen him be really intelligent. How could he be? He is brand new to sentience. But then the thing that I fucking hated was that saying sorry takes everything back. When he said sorry, his nose was suddenly better. Like, oh, you can do whatever you want, but because there's no consequences as long as you say sorry. I hate that. And I think that's the absolute wrong thing. Like if you're trying to build like morality or something, like it is literally like the worst thing that you can do, because like that's just performative. Is he sorry? No, he knew what he was doing. He knew that was a shit. Like I hate that.
Yeah, it's teaching the wrong message because it's teaching that like performative apologies will get you whatever you need. Like I get where he is trying to go. I get the point he was trying to make, but because of the way it was presented, it misses the mark.
But everything was okay in the end because he got his dad's approval, and that's literally all he needs in the world is just his papa's approval. No. So how sweet, right?
Poor baby.
Poor baby.
Poor baby. Poor baby Pinocchio. Oh God, Jess, if they had only. It's a me, a baby, a Pinocchio. I'm a real boy. Like, oh my God, I would have eaten it up. Oh my God, it would have been so good.
It would have been great. Oh, fuck. If only that this movie would have been much better. It would have been palatable.
A papa. I met the donkey. Like, it would have been so fun.
It would have.
So fun.
But they didn't, and I have nothing else to say about this movie.
Yeah, I'm good too.
Because there's nothing. All right, we're back from Italy.
It's me, Pinocchio.
Maybe we're not. Eric, what did you think about 1940s Pinocchio? Who was it for? I'm sorry. I should have asked the real
Who was it
question.
fucking
Who
for?
was this for?
White people? White people who are bad parents. I will not elaborate. Who do you think it was for?
Okay. So we know the real answer is white Christians, right? That's who
Slay.
this is for. I'm sorry, white Christian children, right? That's exactly who this
Slay.
is targeted for. But I think that this is for Figaro. And I need the Figaro cut of the 1940s Pinocchio because, again, any time that Figaro was on screen, it was incredible. It was iconic. It was wonderful. It was the most darling and cutest thing. And I was like, yes, this is why I love cats. This is it. This is
I mean,
this is them.
Figaro was the star, coolest, cutest. It's just Figaro was. I mean, Figaro is the reason for the season. Figaro is the star of this film. No questions asked. Bam.
Did you like it?
Not really. It's like what? It's like a whatever film. I don't like. I don't really think I like strongly dislike it apart from like the some of the themes and the racism because obviously that's like egregious and disgusting. But as a whole, like the movie is just. I don't think I get it. I don't think I get what it's trying to do apart from the Christian shit, which in that case it's like, ooh, okay. So actually, you know what? I've convinced myself, no, I don't like it. I don't like Pinocchio.
Yeah, I feel the same way because like I kept waiting for like because the whole premise is Geppetto wants a son, he gets Pinocchio, and then Pinocchio is supposed to like he's supposed to earn personhood, which sucks, right? That in itself is
Yeah.
like you're not born having personhood, you have to inherit that, and you're not real until you follow my values and these strict rules that are set, right? But like I would have loved to see more of an interaction between Geppetto and the type of person that he is and that softness and laying some of that foundation. I would have loved to see more of him being a father rather than just Pinocchio like having no context for anything being thrown out into the world because I feel like this movie would have been incredibly different. The story in general would be so much more different if, Geppetto had was able to use these skills that he has, in kindness and softness and gentleness. We see it a little bit as they're falling asleep and he's like answering all the why questions and everything. And I just think that that would have been better. And then giving Pinocchio some sort of context for going and moving through the world and actually like learning rather than appointing an arbitrary character named Jiminy Cricket as a conscience, which if he really is supposed to be like an allegory for Christ, I mean, like he's not there, he doesn't do anything. I mean, I guess that's pretty accurate, right?
Slay.
um, and just gets mad at you when you aren't doing what he thinks that you should do.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think we just take Jiminy out altogether. I think we strengthen the relationship between Geppetto and Pinocchio. I think when things get hard, Pinocchio talks to Geppetto and they figure out how to navigate this. I think that would be a wonderful thing. And at the end, let's have Pinocchio let's just have him be recognized as a person to begin with. Let's not even make
Yeah.
this a real boy versus a non-real boy. I mean, what is that when you have sentience, when clearly this is a real living person in front of you? Like, don't make them have to earn their personhood.
Yeah. The only way that I would be interested in a remake of Pinocchio is if it was a trans allegory. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, that would be interesting.
like a movie about trans existence by a trans director and trans writer even. Like I would be so interested in the story because it would say something new about gender. It would say something new about what is and is not real and the acceptance and the absolute disregard for trans existence. Like it would be such an eloquent and like I mean hopefully an eloquent and succinct piece of like queer cinema, and they would say something new about a story that already exists in the same way that it exists. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I'm into that. That would be
But
really cool.
also that's not a story for me to tell. But I just think it would be really interesting if somebody told like it just this Pinocchio's boring as fuck.
Yeah.
let's like tell an interesting story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ugh.
There are choices to be made,
There are
and
choices to be
let's
made.
find out what we thought of the remakes choices. So, 2022 live
Ooh.
action Pinocchio, was this new, interesting, or the same, progressive or regressive? How are you feeling about it?
I'm going to say it was literally everything you said, and that's why it's a problem. It was new and interesting and exactly the same because it had a bunch of new ideas. It was interesting because some of them were really fucking wacky, and it ended up being the same fucking movie where nothing happens and it's boring and cool, whatever. I think it was progressive in the way that it attempted to include people with disabilities and non-white folks, but I also think it was regressive because they did it incorrect at every fucking moment. It was the wrong thing to do at every turn. Not in way of inclusion, but in way of perception and the way that these characters exist within this world. Silly and foolish and very, very bad. What do you think?
I think everything you said, except I don't think it was interesting. There was no point where I
Oh,
was like kept like I mean, I guess it was interesting because I was like sitting there laughing on my couch with Danny, like
yeah.
just
We are just like,
like we were like,
what?
this is such a bad choice. Like, really? Like, where's the super speed? Like, what is happening? Okay, cool. Like, we're gonna, make the same, like, Jiminy Cricket is so fucking corny. Okay. So, you know what? Yeah, same answer. The end.
Cool.
Next question. Who is this for?
Um, this movie's for the Italians. I wish. I wish it was. It wasn't. It really wasn't for the Italians. It was for another bizarre film in the Zemeckis catalog. Like what? Like what another weird fucking movie for him to have co-written and directed. Like what a strange piece of filmmaking. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah,
bizarre, 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 bizarre.
I'm
How
bored,
bizarre,
like,
how
still
bizarre.
talking about it. I'm yawning.
I know. I'm also very sleepy. Everyone clap for me because I'm so tired. Everyone
I
clap. Thank you.
I also I think that this is for I think Disney with this movie just really wanted to continue their streak that they have going with live action versions of their animated
Ugh.
classics. And it was like we have a whole new thing. We have the opportunity to make this good, but no. We are on this like really good streak right now. And like if we break it, who's to say what's gonna we need to keep this going. So I think it was for the losing streak of the Walt Disney live action animated classics collection.
Whoop whoop. Yes, it was.
Did you like it?
No. Well, you know what? No, that's actually a lie. I did like it. I do. I honestly. Is it a bad movie? Without a doubt, it's a bad movie. Did I enjoy myself thoroughly? Absolutely. It's messy and weird and gross and like bizarre. It's such a it's whatever. It could have been so much better and I could have enjoyed it. I did like it. It is a bad movie, but I did like it. What do you think?
I didn't like it. I thought it was boring. There were no women, so I didn't care. No, there was
Also no women.
Fabiana and the Blue Fairy, but again, they were only in it for like 2 minutes. So like, how am I supposed to
Yeah.
care about like 2 hour movie that only has 2 minutes of women? I can't.
Yeah.
I cannot. Simply
Yeah.
cannot. Also, no, I didn't like it because they took all of Figaro's charm away. So fuck them and fuck this movie.
They really did make Figaro just a cat.
Ugh, hated it.
Terrible.
Okay, I think that's it.
Oh
Thank
my
you so
god,
much for
we did
listening,
it.
everybody. We did it. Wow,
We
we
did
made
it.
it.
Thank
We
you
are real
all.
boys now.
We're real boys.
It's good.
Slay, shout out. Congrats to us. Congrats. Thank you to the Academy. We couldn't have done it without you. Thank you to the Zemeckis estate and to all that Robert has done for us in cinema.
Keeping us on the air and
Keeping
making sure we
us.
have new and relevant content. Thank you. We love and appreciate you so much. Can't say
We
the same
love
for
that.
your new movies,
Yeah, we
but
love that you ride the line of overt racism and anti-Semitic rhetoric. You go, Zemeckis. Slay.
don't forget to rate and review us on all the platforms that you listen. That would be so cool. Also, follow us on social media. when we're not incredibly tired from having to participate in capitalism and working so
Oh,
fucking much, we try
oh.
to post on there. So get at us.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
so
tell us
do
what
it.
you want us to review. We've taken requests before, so if you have requests, get at
Yeah,
us.
do work. You choose for us.
Do it. Do it.
Do
It's
it.
so great. We make so many decisions. It's so much right now.
We're tired. We
I'm
need
so
a
tired.
break.
Oh my god. Our artwork and music is by Eric Lefebvre. Our editing is by
Lefebvre.
Danny Barkley. Thank you again for listening, and thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Jess.
And remember, stay cute.
And stay critical.
Bye.
It's me. Goodbye. Goodbye from an Italian Pinocchio. This podcast has been brought to you by the NOTstalgia Network.
Visit thenotStalgiaNetwork.com for more.
Hey everybody, I'm Eric.
I'm Shelby.
I'm Jake.
And we are the band Lousy Advice from the Lousy Advice Podcast.
Come listen as we draft artist and genre-centric best of lists.
With the help of our closest friends.
These lists are canon.
And there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it.
From Misfits to Cher.
Green Day to Gaga.
Or Pup to Paramore.
Listen to the Lousy Advice podcast now, or else.
Stream us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the NOTstalgia Network, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And don't forget that we are the band Lousy Advice, and this is our podcast, the Lousy Advice Podcast.
The Lousy Advice Podcast?
The Lousy Advice podcast.